I'll just get started now if that's all right. Thanks for the introduction, David. Um, so yeah, I think David just went over the title, and we'll go through that as we go on through the slides, explaining basically what that means and what it entails really. Um, 2 seconds, let's get the screen up there. So yeah, as he stated, it's the effects of mindfulness meditation and exercise prescription on self-efficacy for physical activity and functional outcomes in people with Parkinson's disease, a pilot mixed method study. It is a bit of a mouthful, but as I said, we'll go through what that exactly that means. And then just to reiterate, I'm Khalid. I'm a student at Edinburgh Napier University, and I do physical activity and health. I'm currently in my final year, hence why I'm getting my scientific research project off the ground. So we'll just go over a quick overview of the study, just to give everyone an understanding of what's actually going to be happening. So it will run for about 6 weeks, and it'll include, as it says in the title, an intervention of mindfulness meditation, an exercise prescription. And basically, we're going to split the participants in half. So essentially, the people receiving the exercise prescription will be the sort of control group, and then there'll be another group who are randomly assigned as well, who will also be receiving a daily mindfulness meditation practice, which, as you can see, will last about 10 to 15 minutes a day. Um, so they'll basically be compared to one another, what the effects of just exercise and then exercise with mindfulness meditation. So there'll be 3 weekly sessions lasting about 30 minutes. And these have been sort of specified to be Parkinson specific activities. So it looks at things like improving gait, and turning performance, and also balance. So they are exercises that have been um, scientifically researched to be helpful and beneficial for people specifically with Parkinson. There will be 3 visits if you can make them. There will be 3 visits. Um, the location as of yet has yet to be determined, but I think we can, probably make some wiggle room on that. Whatever if we find out a consensus of whatever is easier for everyone. But there will be visits in weeks 1, 4, and 6, and that's just to assess the sort of functional outcomes that we're wanting to sort of analyze. The things like gait, turning performance, things like that, like relative strength testing, especially in the lower extremities. Um, and now coming towards once all the functional tests and whatnot and the scores have been noted down, you will be asked to wear a fitness tracker to measure activity behaviors, and the kind of things that measures will be things like sedentary behavior. So it's very accurate. It's called Active Pals. Um, it's very accurate and has been used before in studies with Parkinson's. It's really accurate at looking at things like sedentary behavior. So how long maybe you're sitting down, what periods of the day you'll be sitting down, it's showing you, when you're most active, when you move the most, when you use the most energy, for example, in your daily active living. And that will be worn throughout the study. And that's usually worn sort of on the thigh. But it will be given, it gives, the proper, provisions for that. They give you the tape and things like that you could wear on the thigh. Um, and there will also be a diary to complete about the mindfulness meditation and the exercise, just to sort of keep you guys up to speed about how you're feeling and perhaps maybe why you didn't, because we're all human, it's not going to be perfect, but perhaps maybe a reason why you didn't complete it or you couldn't have, or just things like that, just to keep us both in the loop. And as I said, just to account for things like that. And then at the end of the sort of 6 week intervention, you will be asked, and this can be done digitally, so it doesn't have to be this one. You can do at home, sort of semi-structured interviews, and that's basically just to find out, sort of some qualitative data, sort of your feelings and thoughts about what the intervention done, about maybe why it didn't work or why it could have worked, but maybe there was something perhaps in the way, anything that could have happened during that period. Um, about why maybe it didn't work or why it didn't, if it suited you or if it didn't, things like that. And so the objectives of the study, are to assess, physical activity levels and some, as I mentioned, those functional outcomes after a 4-week intervention. As I said, we want to compare the mindfulness and exercise compared to the just the exercise to see if that has an effect on a person's self-efficacy, sorry, which we will go on to talk about, which is basically just their confidence to perform a task or to perform something. We want to explore your perspectives, as I said, through the interviews, to see what happened, why it worked, why it didn't work, what was beneficial, what wasn't, how it can be improved next time, and then we can sort of use that information to direct future studies, which is also one of the objectives, to find out if there is any sort of beneficial improvements to this kind of intervention, and that could underline possible messages in the clinical field, and maybe help to prescribe or help to get evidence through the door to help to prescribe these things on a more regular basis. The reason for choosing this sort of let's call it a complementary therapy or therapeutic sort of treatment is that there are, of course, the pharmacological, like the medication and things like that, are the main, and they are effective treatments for that. But there, of course, for some people, there can be side effects and there can be, adverse effects. And this would be something not to, of course, change with the medication, just something to implement to help with things like side effects and, mental side effects or physical side effects. And we'll go on to speak about that a bit later. So why mindfulness and why exercise for Parkinson? So as you can see, I've got some studies here cited as well. So if you want to have a look at them later, you can have a wee read about them. But so in terms of mindfulness meditation, there has been evidence for improved activities of daily living. So that's just sort of your day-to-day movements, things like carrying things, getting up and down from chairs, all those sorts of things. There's improved cognitive function. So things like scoring higher in this study, for example, scoring higher on certain cognitive tests and having a bit more sort of being a bit sharper, a bit more on the ball. Improved psychiatric symptoms. So things like anxiety, depression is what this study looked at. It was able to, for some people, significantly improve psychiatric symptoms just from the use of an intervention using mindfulness meditation. And finally, improvements in pain management. The study was able to, using a questionnaire about pain specific to Parkinson's disease, was able to, for many of the participants, to improve their pain management and the way they deal with pain, the way they view pain, and the way pain sort of interact with their daily life and their daily living. And now for the exercise part, particularly for Parkinson's, they found therapeutic effects on bradykinesia, so things like slow movements and difficulties in initiating movements and things like that. As we were wanting to measure things like gait and turning performance were improved with exercise prescription, and that was a prescription of sort of aerobic, so movement-based, things that will get you breathing a bit more heavily, mixed with strength training, which is things like maybe lifting. It doesn't have to be weights, but it can even just be lifting body weight, so moving the legs up and down, things like that, doing steps up and down, things like that, to get the muscles a bit stronger and a bit more functional. Helps with sleep disorders, so it was able to improve people's sleep performance, if you want to call it that, and reduce periods of insomnia and wakefulness. As mentioned before, mood improvements are similar to psychiatric symptoms, just general outlook on life being, I'm sure we've all heard, for exercise, but specifically this one was to Parkinson's, to be an improvement in mood. And finally, the one that I think is pretty interesting as well is improved medication effectiveness and reduction in side effects, which, as I said, the medication is an excellent thing for Parkinson's, but the fact that there's some evidence to show that it can improve the effectiveness of the medication and also at the same time reduce have reductions in side effects shows to be a really promising thing. And as of yet, there is a gap in the research in terms of Parkinson's for using mindfulness meditation to improve, as I said, self-efficacy, which is essentially just your confidence for exercise. Because there can be things, and obviously for all of us, there's things in the way that stop us, whether it be the motivation, some barriers like perhaps location or weather or pain or fear of injury and things like that. So basically, improving your efficacy, sorry, and your confidence would, hopefully improve your chances of getting involved in exercise and keeping it up. And so far, there have been studies using self-efficacy, mindfulness meditation to improve your confidence, self-efficacy. So there's been those studies in students, cancer patients, chronic pain sufferers, and as it says, cardiac patients. And all of them were found to improve their self-efficacy, their confidence for exercise, which, as I showed in the slide before, has a lot of benefits, especially for Parkinson's. So improving that confidence and getting that confidence up and getting people participating in exercise has shown, countless times in the research to be sort of a positive thing. And as I said, these exercises are based specifically for people with Parkinson's, so they're very, sort of accurate and relevant for people with Parkinson's. And as I said, there's not yet been a study on Parkinson's with self-efficacy and mindfulness meditation for exercise. And hopefully this is where you could help me bridge that gap and help me get the resources and the data to support that, which would be great. And now we'll just sort of look at the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So basically, what you need to do or have or be and not do or be or have to be part of the study. So we'll just start with the inclusion. So obviously, it's a study about Parkinson's disease in people with Parkinson's. So you must have a diagnosis, any stage of Parkinson's, prior to the study, and it's for male and females aged over 40 years. The reason it being 40 is just as I said, David mentioned earlier. I did do a talk at the Young Parkinson's sort of society meeting, and there are several people who fit around that age frame, because a lot of Parkinson's studies tend to have quite a high age range, minimum, I mean. But I wanted to sort of include people in the younger age frame, since we have people in the Young Parkinson's society. So yeah, this one is inclusion. Basically, the ability to speak English or communicate in English, unless you have the access to an interpreter or translator, and in that case, it would be fine. But the ability to speak and communicate in English would be a requirement for the study. Have access to the internet for an inclusion criteria. So there will be, as we'll see later, what you have to do phase of the slides. There is some data that needs to be sent, I think, on a weekly basis from the fitness trackers. So that's for us to be able to put that into data as the study is going on, so we can categorize that data. So there will be some internet requirements for that, so you can send that. And also can commit to a 6-week intervention with functional assessments in weeks 1, 4, and 6. As I mentioned before, that we're trying to make it more as convenient as possible for everyone. And as I said, the locations we could possibly change those to suit people. But there will be assessments in weeks 1, 4, and 6. But the exercise and the mindfulness can all be done at home, and that can be done remotely in your home or anywhere you feel comfortable doing it. It's just for the assessments, and same with the interview. That can be done online. So like you're doing now, it can be done at home, wherever you feel comfortable. And another one is just being able to wear a fitness tracker on their body, by themselves or with assistance. So regardless of how you're able to put it on, as long as you can do that, that would be part of the inclusion. And as I said, willing to provide data from the fitness tracker. So that was sort of linked to having internet access. And then we'll just look at the exclusion criteria. So basically, anyone who refuses to give informed consent, which is of course up to yourselves, that would of course exclude you from the study. Exclude you from the study, just because we need informed consent for you to participate. Mention again, just the English communication in English would be an exclusion criteria. And then anyone who's been advised by a medical professional not to take part in exercise or for some reason for mindfulness meditation, those would also be reasons to be excluded from the study. And as I said, if you have any questions at the end regarding either of these, we can speak about them. So this one's a bit wordy, but it's just to make sure everyone's on the right page about what they will and won't have to do. So those in the exercise group, as we're calling the sort of control group, sorry. So they will complete, as I mentioned before, a 30-minute exercise prescription 3 times a week. And we will be, not hounding you, but we will try to sort of keep like check in with you to make sure to see if things are going all right, see if everything's fine on your end, see if you're keeping up and maybe why not, or what we could change for you. And then also attending the functional outcomes in weeks 1, 4, and 6. Completing a diary about the exercise, which you mentioned before, and then wearing a fitness tracker on your body for the duration of the study, of the intervention. Sending data, as we mentioned before, and then attending that interview, the semi-structured interview at the end of the intervention, which can be done online. And those in the mindfulness meditation exercise group, which I mentioned before, will be randomly assigned. The only difference, you're doing everything the same, but as you can see just there from that way, the only difference in the bold with the star next to it is that you'll be completing a daily 10 to 15-minute mindfulness meditation session, which is essentially what we're looking at to see to compare to the control group to see if that makes any difference in terms of someone's confidence to exercise or their ability to exercise. And that would really be the only difference between the two groups. Everything apart from that would be the same. And those in the control group over here, they will receive the mindfulness meditation protocol after the study, once the study is completed, so that they have the equal opportunity to complete that, to do that mindfulness meditation practice if they so choose to, just to keep it fair and ethical for everyone. So everyone will receive the same thing at some point. It's just during the study, one group will be completing the mindfulness meditation. So basically, what can you guys get out of it? Because you'll be helping me, but I'd like to give something back to you. So as I mentioned before, you'll be getting of course, all of this doesn't need to be said, but of course, all of this is free of charge. There's no hidden anything. It's just for data and to help push forward literature for Parkinson's specifically in this field. But you'll be getting a tailored exercise plan specific for people with Parkinson's to complete 3 times a week. And as I said, we will not in a judgmental way or a sort of try to get on your way, but just to keep up with you and to check in with you to see if everything's going well and if you're completing it. And as I said before, maybe why not, and what we can change or what could be maybe helped to get you doing it. As I said, access to the daily mindful meditation plan. As I said, that will be for both people, just at different points. Some people will be getting that during the study, and others will be getting it after, just to keep it fair. And you'll be getting detailed data about your daily activities, such as sitting, standing, and walking, and also an energy expenditure. And as I mentioned before, things like lying down, sedentary behavior, what times of the day those are taking place. So you have sort of good data on yourself to see, because for some people this data can really help them to sort of push them to become more active. No, it doesn't work for everyone, but it does for some. And this data you can use that. We'll send that to you afterwards, especially once it's been published, the paper. You can see, if what the results are and how that can maybe benefit you later after the study. And then after that, the ability to share your thoughts and feelings on complementary treatments for Parkinson's, which I think, to be honest, is probably one of the most important of the four, because people like you are, as it says there, your opinion matters. It's these kind of studies and these types of things that are trying to find new avenues that can sometimes be a breakthrough. So these kind of things that give people with Parkinson's an opportunity to speak out and to give their opinion on things, I think is really important. And as I said, it can pave the way for new treatments, for new ideas, new avenues, and things like that. So personally, I think that one is a really, really important one. Just some references. Just like to say thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate everyone who's come today and given me their time and listened very patiently. And thank you very much for being here. And we'll just go on to any questions if there is any.
Thanks, Khalid. Could you stop sharing your screen now, and I'm going to stop the recording?
Yeah, no worries.